is here, but these guys decided to completely crash her talk. This is Josh Stead, another postgrad, and Dan Lynch, another postgrad as well, so I'm feeling like a very proud mom today. So these guys are going to talk to you a little bit like this morning about how they got into their current jobs and what they learned at Leeds Trinity. So can we give them a welcome?
Cool. Right, so I'm Josh, and I was here in 2012. And
I'm Dan. I was here the same year as Kate was, 2013, I want to say.
Yeah. So, yeah, basically, we just kind of wanted to share with you guys what kind of happened after we left. We both did the postgrad course. What we sort of do now, hopefully show you like a couple of just bits and pieces that of kind of like the big hitter stuff that's been happening at Calendar and the things that we've worked on and that. So we're both from the fairest island in the entire world. But if you can't
from slightly nicer bits of it.
If you can't understand us, just put your hand up and we'll slow down a bit.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So me, I did my undergrad at Newcastle. I did classics, and you were.
I did history at Queen's in Belfast.
So yeah, we've both Trinity postgrads, and we've both been working at ITV Calendar down the road in Leeds since sort of middle to early 2013.
Yeah,
so
well, you were in March and I was October. Slightly
beforehand. So I finished here in 2012. So then straight out of here I went on and I started doing a bit of work in documentaries, doing other bits and different bits and pieces. So I went to on my work experience and my work placements, I went to ITV, I went to BBC Radio 4, and I went to True North, which is a documentary company in Leeds, for those who don't know it. So from them, straight off the back of that, I started working for True North on a series called Bloody Tales as a researcher that went out in National Geographic. After that, I went on and did a bit of work as a runner for One Born Every Minute at the LGI. Then I went to another documentary company in Leeds called Real Life, where I did some bits and pieces, a bit of research, bit of different stuff out in the field for them on the One Show and some BBC Learning Zone stuff. And then I found myself working as a journalist over at Euronews, based in Lyon, in the south of France, which all of this was on a freelance basis. Euronews, I was basically doing voiceovers, things like that. They have a different way of working because they're working in something like 9 or 11 different languages all at once. So rather than sort of writing your VO for them, you tend to, one person will cut the pictures and then gives it to all the different journalists in all the different languages, and then you go away and record your voiceover and do things like live. So say if Putin was doing a press conference, you'd have a translator speaking in your ear in sort of broken English, and then you're putting it back out live as in what's supposed to make sort of sense to any kind of English audience. And then after that, I got plucked from the wilderness and brought back to work at ITV. So that's kind of my background, and then Dan?
Yeah, well, I went straight from the course here into Calendar, so it was a slightly different route into things, and got ridiculously lucky on that front. So most of my experience kind of comes from before I did this course. So before I had the law training that you need and the public affairs and everything else that you need to get through, I was kind of just freelancing away and writing for free, basically. I think I got, of all of the things up there, I maybe got paid twice, and that's over the course of about 4 years. So the whole time I was doing my undergrad, right from whenever I left school, doing my undergrad, the whole time I was doing it, you know, I was doing gig in NI and BBC ATL's like, it's kind of like BBC Introducing over in Northern Ireland. So I was, you know, doing reviews, doing interviews with them, and basically that just came from beating people's doors down and just not giving up until somebody gave me a chance to write a couple of 100 words for them for nothing. So, you know, that was good, in that, you know, you get a good experience of, it's the perseverance, and you have to track down your own stories. Sometimes somebody will give you a shout and say, look, can you do this, can you do that? But 9 times out of 10, you have to make it happen for yourself. And so some of the cool people you get the interview and stuff like that, maybe other people wouldn't find too cool, but I got to interview people from Status Quo, which I was well impressed with, some Thin Lizzy, Twin Atlantic, and things like that. So, you get a good breadth of things, and most of that was on the writing side of things. Bit of ATL that did some radio as well, so that was kind of co-hosting, doing live on-air reviews. And there was a smaller radio station that did a bit of co-hosting on as well. And then stereoboard.com was something that came up that, again, I just had to beat down doors until I got a chance to do. And again, that was music and reviews. And some features writing as well, which kind of allowed me to develop more in-depth ideas rather than, just a one-off review of a gig or a one-off interview of a band. The only really news I did before I got here was Belfast Telegraph, and that was just kind of shadowing for a few shifts, writing nibs that kind of appeared in the tiny little corner of page 200 and something that nobody ever sees and your name's not on. But in that newsroom environment was, that was where I kind of thought, right, this is definitely what I want to do. And I ended up here through another kind of, it just seems like I've kind of stumbled my way through, but, there was a plan somewhere in there. Whenever I finished uni, I was looking for a course like this to do. I wasn't going to get any, job without proper legal training, without journalistic training. And my mum was watching the TV one day. She says, "Oh, your man Dan Walker off the TV, he did a postgrad course in journalism. You should look up that." She says, "I think he did it in Leeds." So I looked up postgrad course in Leeds, bang, applied, got it. And it was only when Dan Walker was speaking here 2 years ago that he actually did his course in Sheffield. So yeah, yeah, you can see it's just, for me it was a case of, working hard and persevering and not taking no for an answer. You're going to get told no so many times, but just keep at it. If you know you want to do it, keep at it, and eventually you'll kind of land your feet at some point, and then you'll meet lovely people like this man.
Yeah. Just to sort of add on that point, these jobs that I've done didn't come sort of like they didn't kind of like land in my lap. Like when you're freelancing, there's going to be weeks where it's going to get to like Wednesday or Thursday and you go, oh, okay, well, I'm not getting paid this week. And the phone might ring on Friday and they say, oh, can you work all weekend and through to next week, which is great. But you've really got to sort of like, have at these people, and, you've got to make sure that you can get in, get some FaceTime with them, let them know who you are and say, can I come in and do a day? Can I do 2 days? I'll come and do half a week for you for free, just so you can see what I'm about, see that, I'm serious about this, things like that. So, you do have to be prepared to, get out there and actually say, look, this is me, this is what I can do, and, I want to prove to you that I can do it. Which then kind of brings us on to ITV Calendar, which is where we both are now. So we've both been there, like I said, from about 2013. And we both had very different paths into the job. I was, I'd just come back from France, which was kind of a scenario where you would be sitting at home in the morning and you would get a phone call and they'd say, right, there's a flight at 2 o'clock, we want you to come and work for 5 days. Can you make that? Can you make the 2 o'clock flight? And you just have to go, yeah. So it was a scenario where my girlfriend wouldn't really know if, whenever she came home from work, if I was going to still be there or not, what country I was going to be in. I might be in Amsterdam for like a stopover or something like that. So whenever Lindsay Eastwood sort of said, oh, I hear that sort of calendar or on the radar for people, you should drop them a line. I dropped Margaret Emsley, who's the head of news there, an email just saying, oh, hi, just, checking in, letting you know that like I'm available for bits and pieces. And she said, right, do you want to come in for a day? Day turned into 2 days, turned into, okay, well, so do you want to start coming in 3 days a week? Do you want to come in for a week? Oh, do you want to, right, should we do a fortnight? Right, now you've got a contract for a month. You've got a contract for 3 months. You've got a contract turns into 6 months. And then now I'm staff there. And it was really sort of the caveat, like the carrot of having something permanent and, knowing where you kind of stand in a company that kind of like is going to look after you and invest in you, and like having the same people around you rather than sort of living the freelance life that I took the decision that that's where I really wanted to work, and that's sort of the road that I wanted to go down. And then your sort of route into it was a little bit different.
Yeah, Lindsay kind of took a couple of us aside just one day after doing the Leeds Today programme, which I think is still Yorkshire Voice. Yes, it's progressed since then. So yeah, it was the equivalent of that, and she basically said, you know, start on Monday, see what happens. So I was at a point where I was going to do a couple of placements after the course, had some really good placements lined up. And then I was probably going to go home, to be completely honest. I was going to go back to Northern Ireland and see if I could get some work back there. And you can't turn down an opportunity. Whenever somebody says to you, you know, come in and have a chance, you cannot turn that down. And again, same as Josh, it was kind of, you know, it was a couple of days, it was a couple of weeks, and then there was about a year of maybe being on 3-month contracts, just rolling through. And then just before Christmas, then we both got made staff, and just that, you know, there's a progression. You kind of feel like you've achieved something, even though you know, it's basically someone saying, come and work with us. We believe that you can do this job and progress further. And, you know, you're always on that. Whenever you're freelancing or wherever you're on short-term contracts, you've got that doubt in the back of your mind that you don't know, you know, if you're going to be there the next week. But you just have to keep working. You just have to keep doing it and know that, you know, have confidence in yourself. That
know that if you're good enough and that the work that you're doing there is good enough, that something's going to land, something's going to happen eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, just on that as well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with working in the south of France in the summer with a good bottle of red sat outside. So, you know, it's swings and roundabouts really. So
what have you done?
I've gone the wrong way.
What have you done?
I've gone the wrong way.
Too far,
right.
Too fast,
so,
too soon.
Basically, the roles that we now do at Calendar is we're both production journalists, which basically is a bit of an all-encompassing job, which somebody described as sort of being the engine of the newsroom, which I think is quite a good sort of way to put it, because you are kind of getting stuff done on a day-to-day basis. So, for example, one of the first sort of roles that I took on was looking after the website, and I spent a couple of months just every day, single day I did the website and kind of kicked it into line, developed sort of like the way that we wanted to move it forward, our sort of style, what way we wanted to treat our stories, things like that, and then you eventually came and took that over from me. You also produced bulletins, put out the GMB bulletins in the morning, the late bulletins in the evening, and the weekend bulletins. Lunch. So that, again, that's, and lunch as well. So that's you sort of, you know, taking what's about in the day, working out how you're going to treat those stories in X amount of time, and sort of very similar to what you would be doing on Yorkshire Voice, is it now?
Yorkshire Voice.
What is now Yorkshire Voice, and things like that. So, and again, that's going to, you know, doing things like that, that is like a real world exercise that you do here. You know, those are the kind of skills that you can then immediately go and take and transfer. So don't treat it as like this is just a uni exercise or anything like that, because it's a real set of skills that you're developing there.
You know, off the back of, you know, talking about transferring the skills over, directly off the back of, you know, my equivalent to Yorkshire Voice, I got taken into Calendar. You know, you were doing the stuff for, you know, in Europe and stuff like that. That's going to be BCB for us, and Leeds Today were the kind of the things that got us the basic things of those skills. And then whenever you have the kind of basics of it, it's just fine tuning it to whatever newsroom you end up in. Yeah. Like you're saying about producing the bulletins with the GMBs, you're relying on whoever's been working the night before. You know, so that whenever you come in at 5 o'clock in the morning, you've got 2 bulletins ready to go. And then lunchtime is a different thing again, because you're relying on the earliest reporters can get things back to you. You know, what's available at quite an early point of the day. We've bored the lights to sleep. And then late bulletins are different again, because you're kind of taking, you know, the best bits of what's been in the programme and, you know, cutting bits down in the programme and representing it fairly, but putting it into a much smaller space of time. So they're 3 very different processes, but they all rely on the same skills that you kind of like pick up as you're doing it here.
And then just some of the other jobs that I do is I less so these days, but occasionally work as a planning editor. So you know, seeking out the next day's stories, setting them up, getting everything so that you can then pass it over to one of the on-screen journalists and say, there you go, there's your job for tomorrow. And I also act up occasionally, twice a week, as the news editor, again, which is that's probably the job out of that I personally enjoy most, because it's just...
You get to share with people?
Yeah, spend most of your day just on the phone, getting angry at stuff, but it's really sort of, you get a real buzz out of it. So, whenever you take all of those things, put them together, this is what you kind of come out with. So these are kind of some of the examples of the things that we've worked on that over the past, like the time that we've been at Yorkshire Television, that have kind of really kind of showcased what it's about. So we'll see if these work.
Get in.
How's that? So, I mean, we're not going to play all this, but I'll give you the first sort of taste.
We got sound?
Did everyone hear that?
Hello world, this is Yorkshire calling. It's been a weekend like no other.
It was the ride of a lifetime. It was the show of a lifetime.
Millions, yes, millions line the route for 2 days of the Tour de France.
It's come and it's gone, but we'll never forget the grandest of grand departs.
What Dan and I tend to do, what we basically did over that weekend was we ran the calendar website, which then meant that people were sort of sending in things from all over the region, and we were kind of having to sift through it, see what was, what we wanted to use, what not. And in the weeks leading up to it, I did a series of guides and things, sort of, a bluffer's guide to cycling, which really was a bluffer's guide to cycling, because I know nothing about cycling, so it was a learning curve for myself as well. So yeah, do you have anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, well, the Tour de France, it was a massive operation. I think it was the biggest, certainly the biggest thing that we've been involved in the time that we've been a calendar. And part of the complication of it was you've got people all over the county sending you stuff back, and you're getting emails after emails after emails with pictures, lines of copy, things like that. And it was just the structure. We had postgrads from Trinity and stuff like that in helping us out. And for us, it was a case of coordinating it and structuring it and just putting it on the website and just keeping everything ticking over. And it's like Josh was saying about doing the news ed shifts. It's getting the buzz of being in that kind of, albeit a small part, but still a part of a massive, massive operation.
So the next sort of big one that we've both been involved in is Anne Maguire. I was the news editor the day that story happened, and for the remainder of my career, I'll remember like the moment that I saw that story on the police website, and I basically just swore, because it was, the police press release said like teacher stabbed in a school in Leeds, and there's some stories that come along and you just know instantly like that is going to be a massive story, and it turned out to be an international story really. There were TV crews from China and stuff like that camped outside the school, and it was just this is probably again one of the biggest stories that I think we've been involved in. This would be the bits and pieces that from whenever
that's
he was
our web coverage from the day of the sentencing. So it kind of it works in reverse order, but obviously the news stream you'd be working your way up. So we had John Hill in court and Chris Kitty in court. So we had two people tweeting out of court. I think I was one of two people on the website that day. I think we knew it was going to happen. We knew it was going to be big. So I was just on dealing with the stuff coming out of this court case. So we had two people reporting from court. And then there was a question about whether the Will Cornick was going to be ID'd or not. Whenever that happened, that spins up a whole other load of stuff that you have to take into consideration. And then we had, obviously we had everything pre-planned, and it was a case of not just kind of redoing the program online, but getting that bit extra that you have the freedom to do and the time to do on the website. And for anybody wanting more detail on it, kind of the website was the place to go.
I mean, and then the day of her death was probably one of the most hectic days that I've ever had. But I think that I was the news ed on the day that the trial was happening, and it was one of the calmest days of my life because everything was planned. We knew exactly what was going to happen, and yeah, I mean, I remember on that day we had the picture of her verified to us by a news agency and people down on the ground, and we had to take the decision that we were confident that it was that the picture of that we had was of her, and we took the decision that we were confident and that the story was going to be so that everybody in the school was bound to know and would likely to know enough that we probably took a little bit of a risk, but it was a calculated risk, that we were confident that the picture that we had of Anne Maguire was indeed her, and we took the decision to put that online. And I don't think I've seen our website like it, because we did it before BBC and Sky and anyone else, and that was again from people down on the ground, independently verifying things for us, and just sending people down there to have hands at the pumps.
Again, it was another day where you're kind of you're taking loads of stuff in from different sources, and you can't get swamped. The worst thing you can do is kind of just completely freak out and go to ground, and you just take a calm head, take a breath, and there's as well as that, there's always going to be people around you who are more experienced than you are, no matter where you are, no matter who you are, and don't be scared to ask for help. There was times in that day there was stuff coming out of court during the sentencing trial, the sentencing, not the trial, that I was kind of, I was reading it on the website thinking, are we okay to put this on? Are we okay to do that? Even though it's a tweet and even though it's out there, to take it and embed it on our website was another step. Yep. And there's nothing wrong with turning around in a difficult case like that and saying, do you know what, I need somebody else to make this decision for me. And that's, and then at the end of the day, you just breathe out.
Yeah. So we'll crack on because time's getting on. This is shortly after we started. This is another sort of day that I'll always remember watching this program grow out, and especially this piece. We'll show you a couple of minutes of the start of this piece. And just very, I think it was just a strange vibe in the newsroom, because normally it's coming up to a deadline on air. It's really hectic. There's people shouting at each other, swearing, going, make it happen. And just kind of everyone kind of just stopped and watched it, and it was just a weird kind of like vibe, whenever this, especially this piece came on, which will hopefully play.
If it's on, we
I checked it earlier. It did work.
Yeah. Behind this closed door, a child lived and died. It could be any ordinary house, a 3-storey terraced family home in Bradford. But away from prying eyes, tiny Hamza Khan starved to death. This was Amanda Hutton's living room. It's where she spent much of her days. Empty now, waiting for new tenants to move in. It's an unremarkable room. But this was the room when she lived here. Abject squalor, mounds of rubbish, plastic bags, empty bottles, discarded food packaging, all surround a baby's high chair. The kitchen today gives little clue to what happened here. This was Amanda Hutton's kitchen, the floor invisible beneath piles of waste. A black bin liner overflows with rubbish. In the hallway, yet more, and over the letterbox, a plastic bag stops people from peering in, from smelling the filth. Upstairs in Amanda Hutton's bedroom is where a police officer found Hamza's body. His remains, in a cot next to his mother's bed, had lain there for almost 2 years. The prosecution said his body had been effectively mummified by the passage of time. Perhaps the most pathetic picture, this one taken by a police photographer. the label of the baby grow that Hamza was found in. It was for a baby aged 6 to 9 months. Hamza was 4.5 years old when he died.
You know, again, that's just another example of the kind of like crazy stuff that you kind of deal with, and you've got to things like that as well. Is like you know, people will always talk about like a journalist's sort of black sense of humor, and it is because you've got sometimes with things like that. Some things are so messed up that you hear about, and some of the things as well that like we get in sort of sometimes in like copy and stuff like that like we just take a decision not to put out. You know, that's another skill that you'll kind of learn, is just to like lock some stuff away and just don't think about it. Very, very quickly, we'll just show you one or two, just two more other kind of examples of stuff. So I've been quite lucky, and I've been down to Wembley 3 times now with work, and you've been down once?
Until Aston Villa and Bradford playing the FA Cup.
Well, that's not going to happen. So basically, I got down for the semi-final of the FA Cup whenever it was Sheffield and Hull, and I went down for the final as well. So I was basically running around like a loon on the day, taking pictures, running down, taking pictures, getting video interviews on my iPhone, and then just legging it back to the press room at Wembley to like bang stuff up, get it up on the website, and then run back out and do the same again. But I mean, getting in to Wembley whenever there's nobody there is.
And some run up to the press room
yeah,
as well. Wouldn't
yeah. You know, so I mean, there's kind of other bits and pieces because the stories then progressed afterwards. But you kind of, so you're there and it's all kind of happening, and you've got to kind of like do it on the hoof. You know, you've got to get a story right up there, quickly after it's happened. So you know, you're sitting in the press room after the game, and everyone is just frantically like battering away at the keyboards. So I, obviously not being a great copywriter, just wrote as minimal as possible. But then you sit and you tweet throughout the game and do stuff like that. Like, how did you?
I don't think it was on that day. I think the time I went down was the Rotherham Leyton Orient, I want to say, League One playoff final, and Rotherham ended up winning that. It was a cracking game. It was good stuff, and it was good. It's just a different experience. You know, we've shown kind of the bad end of the scale, so to speak. But you get things like this in the Tour de France. They're really good days out, and you get a chance to work at something that's pretty cool. You might not get the chance to do in another line of work. And for me, working on the website, the beauty of it is you can get something a wee bit different. You know, you can get like the kids, the photos and stuff like that, just moving on a bit quicker. And just get something slightly different from what's going to go out on the TV.
For example, this is well. Let you take this one.
I got a sitting in work one morning on the website. We get emails in, we get tweets, we get all sorts of stuff. Most of it unrepeatable. But a lady emailed me on Facebook and just says this is happening in a park up near where I live, and so we went with it on the day, and it turned out that these marshmallows were being laced with what I think they thought was rat poison, and they were worried about, first of all, pets, you know, walking around this park, picking them up and eating them and then getting ill, but also it was really near a children's play park. So, you know, there was that aspect of it. And that was just a story that literally came from somebody messaging me on Facebook and me giving her a ring and saying, look, would you be about to do something if we sent someone up? And that was one of our highest hitting stories last year on the website in terms of just straight off hits. And that went really, really well. And you never know where a story's going to come from, and you kind of have to react to it. And part of the web desk as well is constantly talking about what's going on the TV as well. There'll be days where 90% of what goes on the website doesn't get touched in the program at all. There's just not space for it. There's not pictures. You know, editorially, it's not the right thing for the program. So you can do it on the website, but sometimes there's a story on the website that you need to tell everybody else about and say, look, this needs to be done.
This did so well on the website that we actually then went and covered it in the program the next day, because it was just, so a story could come from anywhere, but especially with the online stuff, and I mean, everything's moving online now. There's no getting away from it. So, you know, if in the first place that you start working, they say, okay, you're going to work on the website, don't be like, oh, but I wanted to come and work in TV, or oh, I want to write in the paper, because the website skills are going to be that's what's moving forward. That's what you need. So, very, very quickly, basically what, because Kate needs to get going, what you need to really, really work on and think about whenever you're like coming out of here is make the most out of your work experience. I cannot stress that enough. Work experience is how we got our jobs. It's a golden ticket, it's a golden opportunity. Make the absolute most of it. Just, you know, get everything out of it. Ask as many questions as possible. You know, make contacts with people. You know, find out the people who have come in most recently. Find out what they did to get their job. Because 90% of people out there are cool. Like, people are going to, because they've had somebody somewhere along the line that's helped them. So if you're ever in Yorkshire Tally, just come and find us, and you know we'll you know see you out and make sure, because somebody at some stage did it for us. Stay in touch with people. You know, keep if you find somebody that you really got on with somewhere that you were on a work experience or something like that, drop them a line every now and again. Just, you know, see how they're going on. Find out if there's any openings. Openings might not be advertised. They might say to you, actually, we know such and such is pregnant, such and such is going to leave. So, you know, there's a chance of an opening. Maybe find the right time to drop an email, things like that. Take every opportunity. Part of me getting into calendar again was whenever they were moving across from the old building to the new one, they asked a couple of people to come in and sit and be like dummy interviewers, basically, interviewees. And I went in and did it. There was supposed to be 3 or 4 people there. I was the only one that showed up. And like, you know, that, funny enough, whenever after I started, they went, oh wait, yeah, you went and did that. So people remember like things like that. Just take those opportunities, and really like the overriding one is just be cool. Don't be a dick to anyone. Just be genuinely, because there's so many people come in and do work experience and things like that in our place that there's some kids come in and they don't want to know, they don't want to do it, you know, they don't want to interact with people, talk to people. Just come in, be cool, ask people questions. We've all been there before. Go and ask people if they want a cup of tea. And if you don't drink tea, or you don't you don't like tea, that's not a good enough excuse. Go away and learn how to make a decent cup of tea, because it gets remembered. It genuinely gets remembered. I will take more notice and take more interest in showing what I'm doing to somebody who comes in and who's at a loose end and says, "Oh, would you like a brew?" Go, yeah, that's great. Yeah. Oh, well, why don't you sit down and you know, so just be dead on. Just be all right with people. So
the only things I'd add to that is kind of know your patch as well. I think I was very conscious of it moving over here, because I'm not from here, obviously, and so I learnt, you know, what bits of the patch we cover. I kind of took it for granted that anybody here would automatically kind of know that Hull is in East Yorkshire and Leeds is here and Wakefield's just a bit down there a bit. And there are so many people that come in and work experience that just simply don't know the patch that we cover, and they get found out so quickly.
Yeah.
And you know, that's one of the things that I think I would, you know, add to that.
Right, we will let Kate go, and then afterwards we'll do questions. Those are our contact details. You know, just hit us up if you've got anything. Kate's up, and then we'll come back and do questions.
I just want to thank the guys for leaving me with this backdrop. I don't have any visual aids. So, I don't have any visual aids, so if I'm speaking too quickly or not clearly enough, please just let me know. Okay, so journalism for me was a decision I came to quite late on. I was 22 when I realised that it was an actual thing that I could actually do. I decided on it the day I got my degree in Edinburgh, when somebody told me that was a thing that you could do. I spent 2 years gaining work experience after that while I was working in a pub. I thought it was really important to get a real breadth of experience. So I worked at lifestyle magazines, bridal magazines, reviewed comedy for years, just as many different things as I could do. Many strings to your bow, as you can get. I did not get my big break doing that because, like these guys just said, I was too nervous to offer to make tea. I would just sit there and go, oh, they'll think I'm really good because my writing's really good, but I didn't make any kind of impression on anybody because I just sat there quietly and like email questions to people. That's not a good idea. So I took the advice of the editor of the Scotsman newspaper, who consistently refused to give me any work experience without and I signed up for the course here, which was easily the best decision I ever made in my life. My confidence came on so quickly, just from being here, from being pushed to do things that I would never have dreamed that I could do, like Vox Pops. Like, that was a big deal for me to be doing Vox Pops. I'd always wanted to write for Cosmo. So when halfway through the course, Lisa said, oh, there's a job going there, you guys should apply, I decided I would, even though I thought there's no chance I'm going to get this job. But I knew I had to give it a go. I was beyond excited when I got a call saying I had an interview, and I failed to hide any of that excitement when I turned up for the interview. I was just out of my head with excitement, meeting these writers that I had read about in Cosmo for years, and then seeing them and you think, wow, you're like a real person, and gosh, that's amazing. So I brought my portfolio, which was Lisa again told me to do that, and thanks to the work that we had done in Yorkshire Boys, I had some really great stuff in there. I had some really, really great stuff that I could say this was my idea, and I found this interview, and I got this person, and that was what they were looking for, was somebody that was driven to kind of get their own story and really kind of work it out. I didn't get that job, but I did make an impression on them. They invited me to apply for a year-long features internship that they had coming up. I asked them if I could come and do work experience, and they said, yeah, definitely come in this week. While I was in for that week, they said, would you like to come for 3 weeks freelancing at the end of the year? I said, yeah, I'd love that. And during those 3 weeks, I started interviewing for the internship. And that was so nerve-wracking to be sitting in an office with somebody who then goes, do you want to come for your interview now? And then just go into another room and you're all of a sudden being interviewed by this person. It was such a strange situation. I was bloody awful in that interview. I was so nervous. I rambled. I couldn't believe the things that were coming out of my mouth. I was just going, shut up. But somehow they thought I was good enough to be interviewed by the editor. Louise Court, who is wonderful, really, really on the ball. And she liked me enough to give me the job. I recently spoke to Rosie, who's the content director, about what it was that she had liked about me, because I've just been interviewing for other work. My internship finished in February. And she said that I was friendly and enthusiastic. She said that she saw skill in my writing, but the most important thing she said was that I knew and had passion for the brand. Before I went in there, I spent the longest time researching Cosmo, right back to the very first person that ever wrote for Cosmo, and everything they'd ever done in their existence, as if I was going to have an exam on it. I came up with 2 A4 sheets worth of ideas, practiced my pitches in my head over and over again. I looked at common interview questions, asked Lisa for help with questions and answers that I could give, and she coached me brilliantly, and it was all worth it. So I've learned an awful lot this year, and I'm just going to tell you a few of the most important things that I've learned, and I hope that they'll be useful to you. The first thing is, you are using a lot more unnecessary words than you think you are. 300 words isn't that much, and lots of adjectives do not a great piece of journalism make. I looked after this one regular feature we had called My Body's Amazing. I love doing it. So we would ask women to have a naked photo shoot, and then we would find out about their body confidence journey. It was a really nice piece. I loved it. But we would often do quite a lot in one go, so that we had them in the back for, if you can't find anyone for this month, then you can just sort of slot them in. 4 months after I'd written one, I came back to it to just make sure it was okay before I passed it on. It wasn't horrific. It was so awful. It was so long. It was wordy. It was just not Cosmo at all. And that was a big wake-up call for me. An important thing to remember when you're writing is that you are writing to communicate to the reader. You're not writing to show off how great a writer you are. You always have to keep the reader in mind first and foremost. If you're pitching an idea to an editor or if you're freelancing, the strongest hook that you have is that cover line. Your idea might be brilliant, but you have to be able to sell the idea. You have to come up with something really snappy. It's got to be interesting, and please try and avoid clickbait, because it's the need to be really, really clear on what your angle is. When you think about women's magazines, it's the same subjects every single time. It's sex, relationships, careers, fashion, beauty, and it has been forever and ever and ever. But your job is to make that brand new every time. Make it brand new, make it relevant to the reader every single time. That is easily the hardest skill I had to learn, but now that I've learned it, it's the most amazing thing. It's such a great thing to get the hang of. This might seem like a really obvious one, but it isn't to everybody. Take feedback well and build on it. Not everybody can react very well to feedback. Sometimes it's hard to hear that maybe you're not doing something right, but how else are you ever going to learn? If somebody's coming to you and saying, I read this and it read this way to me, chances are it's going to read that way to somebody else as well. So it's always helpful to have those voices. Shorthand is your very best friend. I'm really sorry if that's not what you want to hear, you guys, but what else are you going to do when you realise that you've been recording an interview for an hour with someone that was really, really hard to get hold of and you've plugged your microphone into the earphone jack? What else are you going to do? You've only got your voice, you haven't got their answers. Make shorthand notes. My top tip for this is what I did was start taking all of your notes in shorthand right now. And it makes you really think. It helps you to learn because you're thinking about what you're writing much, much harder. And also, you just get much quicker. You just get loads of quick credit. And by the end of the year, you'll be sorted. And this one is also very important, I think. Be nice to people. Everybody, when I said I was wanting to do journalism, everyone said, well, that's a really cutthroat industry. How are you gonna survive? And it is competitive. It's really, really competitive. But so far, I haven't had to screw anybody over, and I haven't seen anybody get screwed over. You can be nice, you can be you, and still get on. Be nice, be friendly, be memorable, and work your ass off. Right now I'm doing some freelance work, and this morning I was offered a job, copy editing at a content creation company. It is true that journalism jobs come up less frequently than other jobs, but keep going. It's totally worth it. It's taken a while, but at 27 years of age, I'm about to start earning more than minimum wage for the first time in my life. It's a good feeling, you guys. My final nugget of advice is this. It's really, really helpful to have a statement article. So if you're in a job interview, it's something that you can point to and say, I've done this. For me, I did some work experience at Vice magazine, and I pitched them an idea about paedophiles who don't offend, who make a choice not to offend and go to therapy for that. Now, that is a difficult subject, obviously, and it meant that I had to source an interview to paedophiles, to self-identified paedophiles, which is not the easiest job in the world. But now that I've done that, I bring it up in every interview that I do, because it makes me memorable. It shows that I'm able to think outside of the box, and it shows that I can handle very difficult, sensitive issues in a way that's publishable, and also in a way that's legally sound. So my advice to you would be find your one, or while you're here, make a real effort to make one, create one that you can point to in future interviews and say, look, I can do this, this is what I can do, so I can do any other thing, you know? So I am going to stop talking about myself now, and we, three of us, would love to answer any questions that you guys might have. I would encourage you to ask questions. Nothing is a stupid question, and journalists make their living off asking questions. Okay?
Hi, I've got a question that's come in via Twitter from Rachel J. Victoria for UK. She wants to know if celebrity magazines promote a positive body image.
I'm going to have to answer that from a kind of Cosmo-y point of view, I think there is definitely, as far as I'm concerned, an issue with the way that women are portrayed in certain magazines. It's not fun for anyone to see their bikini body on the front cover of a magazine, a vigorous circle, going, look at that cellulite. Like, come on, which one of us is perfect? Nobody. However, I would say that Cosmopolitan does promote a healthy body image. With articles like that, I was talking about, like, My Body's Amazing. I have some PDFs, actually, if you're interested. and we have health pages that are about health, not about body size. We at Cosmo, I'm not there anymore, but we always tried so hard to say, you are who you are, please be happy with that. We've never, while I was there at least, we've never shamed anybody for looking the way that they look. We do have things about fashion, we do use models, we do have beauty things, but it's not saying, if you look through our cover lines, at least from the past year, it'll never say, you must have this. It says like, well, if you want to like do your eyebrows a bit different, this is a cool way to do that. If you want to, don't have to. So that's, I mean, I guess I wasn't at Celebrity Magazine, so I can't say how the inner workings are, but certainly for us it was a case of, we want our readers to feel happy, we want them to love themselves, and to love their life. Definitely not going to do that by fat shaming, skin shaming, like hair shaming, or any of that kind of thing. I hope that was the right answer for the person.
I'll tell her the answer now, she might reply.
Okay.
Just a question for all of you guys really, but what did you find to be the steepest learning curve when you first got into your jobs after uni?
I personally, I think it was kind of learning that it was actually alright to kind of be myself when I'm there. And what will probably surprise some of the tutors here was that whenever I first started going into like those kind of environments, I was really, really quiet and quite like reserved, which I know. And I kind of was going in and doing things, and like speaking to people and trying to pick things up and stuff like that. But for the first sort of 6 months or so at Calendar, like I was very, very quiet. And it was my boss pulled me in and she said, "You're doing great, etc. But you need to come out of your shell a little bit more." And subsequently I did, and she probably really frigging regrets that now. But it was that point that I started, you are as interesting as you want to be, and just go in and just be yourself, and like, not everyone's going to like you as well doing that kind of stuff, but like that was for me personally. It's probably not going to apply to everyone, but yeah.
I think for me it's just kind of something that I said as well earlier. Don't be scared to ask for help. People know that you're maybe just coming in, out of uni or a couple of freelance jobs. You need a couple of months at least to kind of bed into just first of all the way that things are done wherever you are, and that's going to be different whether you're BBC, ITV, any of the documentary companies, any magazine. I'm sure like different places are just completely different. Don't be scared to ask for help. Nobody's going to kind of look at you and go, I'm not going to help you. It's in their interest to help you and to improve you, to make the overall product better and more interesting, and use the people around you. If you're in a newsroom or an environment with people who have experience, like we have people like John Hill, Chris Kitty, and people like that, and these are guys that have been doing it for years. Use that experience. They're not gonna turn you away for asking for some advice. Even if it's just in TV, maybe voicing a package, just how to phrase a line or how to write a sentence a little bit better. Small things like that can make a massive difference. And in my experience, they admire you for asking. They admire you for kind of saying, look, I do need help with this, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Because everybody wants a great product at the end of the day. You're all working to the same goal. So if you need help, they want you to do the thing well.
Also, don't get insulted easy. People
especially if you come to work for us.
Yeah, they're in any place. Well, maybe not, but there'll be shouting going on. There'll be stuff going on. Don't take anything too personally. There's stuff said in the heat of the deadline that me and him have come to blows almost at points.
Just a wee love tap.
But it's at the end of the day. Whenever the program's out, whenever the magazine's done, whenever the website's done, just go and have a pint and enjoy it, and just kind of don't take anything too personally.
Don't take it on me either.
Yeah, definitely don't.
Sorry, I'll just really quickly. I think for me it was learning to find that angle in things. I would take what I thought were great ideas into features meetings, and everyone would go, okay, cool, but what are you gonna, what do you want to do with it? And I'll be like, oh, that's the thing, that's the idea. And you've got to really drive down into a subject and really kind of just search around in there, comment from as many different angles as you can, read on as many different types of websites as you can, and then you'll be able to really kind of, this is someone born every minute, and like, you've got to kind of reach in there and like pull it out. Sorry guys, but that's what you've got to do. Okay.
Just been taken off there.
That's kind of in relation to what you said. A lot of people today have said that it's really important to have like a big story to take in to an interview, for example. Yeah. I'm really struggling with actually sourcing stories at the minute, a bit like what you're saying. I don't know, but what did you all do to do that?
So for me, it was definitely a difficult process. There's so many interesting things in the world, and they look so interesting on the face of it that you just think, wow. But then, you know, it's what I would say to that one is, are you news or features? What kind of journalism are you into?
Well, I'm on the broadcast.
Okay, so it may be slightly less helpful from me, but I would always start from the other side. I would always say, what is the thing that I want to say? Like, what is the top area that I want to cover? And then I would sit there and I would go on Twitter, I would go on Facebook, I would go on every news website that I could find, and I would go on features websites, I would look at it from every single angle that I could. If you find it interesting, tell me a little sentence in anything, research that sentence. Find out as much as you can about that sentence, and there's going to be something happening somewhere in there. It's not always finding a great person to interview, but for features, certainly you can look at things in so many different ways, and it's just finding that way. It's a really difficult skill to learn, but it's so good once you have it.
Sorry, for advice, was that based on something that you already knew? Like, did you have a plug for an actual story, or was it just something that you thought would be interesting?
So I remember having a conversation with you about this, I think, in the pub at one time, and I said, do you know what story I would love to do? I said, I would love to do a story about paedophiles that don't offend, because as far as I'm concerned, it is unfortunately sexual preference, the same as being heterosexual, homosexual, or bisexual. So I just thought, if that is the case, and that is my belief, then there must be people out there who are paedophiles who don't offend. So it came from that idea. I remember when I got to Vice, I mentioned it to somebody else, and he went, good luck with that, we don't look like anybody. However, there's a community, and I found it. And I found two, actually, one in America, one in Germany, and I contacted them. They put me in touch with other people. They put me through some really rigorous checks to make sure that I wasn't just going to, like, what's that guy called that goes around and counts paedophiles and makes them kill themselves? So I went through all these checks with them. I had to really gain their confidence, and in the end I got some amazing material out of it. It is hard to hear that stuff sometimes, but that's why you're the buffer between the reader and the subject. You have to be the one that says, this is what I think you need to know. But yeah, it kind of came from an idea, and then I just kind of had to build on it.
When you're between jobs and when you're freelancing and you're halfway through the week and you think you're not going to get paid on that week, how do you actually get through and survive financially in terms of paying bills?
Just goes on bit beans, it is actually really, really scary. I saved up. I knew it was possibly going to happen, so I saved up. That's all I have right now.
Yeah, if you're freelancing, the very nature of the beast is that it's feast and famine, really. You know, whenever somebody finally gets around to actually paying you as well,
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, this is great, like, throw one. But then you've just got that is a skill as well. Is learning to just manage yourself, and that's like a personal skill. Because beforehand I was really shit with money. Like I would just burn a hole in my pocket, and through finding myself skinned a couple of times while freelancing, you just very quickly learn that you've absolutely got to. And is there a reason why why it's got to Wednesday or Thursday and you haven't? That's the thing. instead of sitting there and go, oh, it's Wednesday, Thursday, not getting paid this week, turn the phone off, go, right, it's Wednesday or Thursday, who have I not asked, who have I not been in touch with yet, recently, and going back to them, because then that might be Monday's work. So, yeah.
I was on work placement a couple of weeks ago, and basically I found a really great story, but it involved an ethnic minority. And the people I was working for completely shut it down. Have you ever come across anything like that in your career so far?
Not really. Being part of ITVs, you know, we do have quite a lot of corporate responsibility, and we have to really, we have to be able to show that we are being diverse and that we're doing, you know, making efforts not to just put white, middle-aged, middle-class men on TV. So, you know, that could just be an isolated case, but a lot of places are looking for, you know, really diverse stories and things like that. So I wouldn't take that as sort of like an overarching kind of gauge of the industry at the moment.
The other thing I would say is that you have to be so careful in terms of protecting yourself from libel. So if you're gonna put a story out that is potentially going to be offensive, you have to be so careful. I don't know any other reason why they would have shut it down unless it was fear of being sued or something.
No, they just generally said they didn't publish stories and not minorities.
Okay. That's such an unfortunate thing to do, because then you're not hearing every voice. You're not representing everybody.
Just think of it as a story you can fall back on the next interview. You go in, I've got this story, and I know it's a story.
Because guarantee somewhere else will snap your hand off of that.
And then you stood out from the crowd by getting that story, you know, from a community that maybe you're not a part of. You've gone into that, and that might have been uncomfortable. It might have been a bit difficult to get in, but you got in, you got the story. So keep a hold on it, keep working on it, and just finesse it until the next time you can use it.
Sorry to interrupt. If they do give you a clue like that and say, oh, we don't do stories in ethnic minority, find out a different way to sell it to them.
Plus, do you want to work there?
Well, yeah, exactly. If they're going to do things like that.
Yeah, that should be a pretty good gauge of that. Any more?
This is with magazines.
Sure.
Women's magazine, company magazine stopped printing in October.
Yeah. Right. They were on my floor. It's awful.
Do you think that's a one-off case, or is it an interesting way of thing? Are people preferring the online content of the magazine over the physical form?
This is just my opinion. It's not the opinion of Hearst magazine, just to let you know. I think the unfortunate disappearance of company in its physical form was that the age group that they were aiming at was 16 to sort of 23-ish, which is the digital generation. You know what I mean? Like, my generation buys magazines, but I think, and people of my age, but I think that when you're asking a 16-year-old to go out and buy a magazine, you know, they've got fun and all that stuff on, that's how they've grown up. So it's much more difficult to sell it to them in that way. So I think that that was one that we really felt, because like they were like over there, and all of a sudden like we had loads of clean spoons in the kitchen when they left and stuff. But sad spoons, sad spoons, you guys. That's just the way the industry's going. I think everybody at the moment is trying to find the next best way to communicate things to people. And while a lot of magazines are sort of having things like that happen to them, there are a lot of magazines that are growing in strength, especially in terms of the web presence. One of the things that I would advise anybody that's doing work experience is to go in and say, what can I do for you on the web? Because you're going to get byline, and they always need web content, You can't have enough web content. So if you can find out who the web editor is or the digital director, go to them and say, oh, I've got these ideas for you, or, you know, I can do anything you want me to do, and you'll get so many bylines just to do it from them.
I would to add to that as well, kind of, if somebody in work experience or something comes into us, and they're sent out with a reporter, and I'm on the web desk, and I get an email back in from this person in work experience, just with a couple of photos and the story, maybe a line of copy, that's that's a winner in my book. You know,
that's such
just a bit of initiative.
Such a massive like boost in your favour, because it's not. It doesn't just come to us and we go put it online. It's you'll turn to like the program editor or somebody like that and be like, oh, you know that kid who's out in work experience that just sent me X, Y, and Z. And again, it's those little tiny things that you can do to set yourself apart that you'll get remembered by. Any more?
Sure. It's good, Dan. You said you have quite a lot of work experience in music journalism. Would you rather go into that niche or you're not really on that?
I'm happy where I'm at. I think the reason I started in music was because that was my comfort zone. I think that was something that, you know, I knew enough about it that even if my writing wasn't up to scratch, I could probably get away with doing it. And I got into doing it just from whenever I was back home, just playing gigs. And then we would get reviewed, and I'd read the reviews, and I think, jeez, that's rubbish. Do you know, even I could review my own band better than that, and be even more scathing and, you know, frugal with words. So it was from that I kind of latched on to the people who then were doing the reviews and said, look, how do you get into this? How do you do this? And that was me kind of, I found my feet there because it was a comfort zone. It was something that I knew that I could write about with confidence and kind of hone the other skills that I needed to then move in and apply those elsewhere. And you know, there was stories that I did for stereoboard.com. They let me do like a massive series of features that I just did myself because I was writing a dissertation in uni or something at the time, and I weirdly had a bit of free time on my hands. So I was doing that, and they let me do that, and that kind of helped me source stories, source interviews, you know, collate different sources, things like that. And because it was something that I knew like the back of my hand, it made it easier to then just let the journalism kind of just happen. And then that was vital for whenever I came over here, and then I was put out of my comfort zone. All those other things were already there. I was able to write decently well. I was able to source stories and interview people. And it's the same skills, it's just a different subject. So I just honed the skills on a subject that I was comfortable with, and I knew it could just as easily have been sport or, you know.
On sport. And on a similar vein, anybody who thinks, I only want to do sport, I just want to be a sports journalist, I don't know anything about news, I don't care about news, I would go away and have a real serious think about if this is the right industry for you, especially given the downscaling that's happening. Our sports guys could turn around the top story on our programme, because at their very core they're good journalists. So I would have another interest or another niche that you're interested in other than sport. If you want to do sport as your main specialism, yeah, that's cool. That is great. And there's, I mean, given being the fact that we're in the digital age now, there's such a desire and a hunger out there for people to always be consuming different unique bits of sport journalism. But think about not just pigeonholing yourself. You know, be prepared to go and work on other bits and pieces as well.
I'd say on the flip side of that as well, if you hate sport, that's going to get found out too. Yeah. If you can't write a simple 400-word article on a football match or a sports story that's breaking, if you don't have PA copy to fall back on, if you don't have something else to fall back on, you need to be able to knock out a decent, you know, it can be the bare minimum, just to get it on the website and to make it look like, you know, what you're talking about, even when you don't.
Even know the local teams.
Yeah.
You know.
It's as simple as that, and be able to. It's the same as knowing the patch, know the teams you cover. Even if you hate football, if you hate rugby, I came over here and never watched rugby league, and now I quite enjoy it. It's great, and it's, you know, it's only one of the. Well, last weekend was still pretty good, wasn't it? Yeah, just even if you really hate it, that applies to politics, economics, anything at all. If you hate it, make a point of getting to know it, because it can only do you good.
Any more?
One last question for the Kelly Coleman lecture. Do you know the debrief magazine at all? Yeah, okay. So I was just wondering, that was the first sort of, or when it's been launched by sort of big company that's online and makes advertising and stuff like that. Do you think that's the way the magazine industry is going now? It's hard to say. Like, for me, I really only have one solid year of experience. But I would say that even in that 1 year that I was at Cosmo, there was a massive shift.
now are all completely web and integrated. So, yeah, is it advertising that you would like me to answer?
Yeah, do you think that's a viable way?
Yeah, definitely. It's also one of the hardest things to do. Advertorials in magazines are, or at least at Cosmo I found in mag advertorials a bit easier because the tone is easy to maintain. When it's online, it's a very, very excellent skill to master if you can make something look like a native piece of content that's actually secretly an advert for some jewellery. Because especially at Cosmo, we don't really, apart from in the fashion department, we don't really do that many product articles. It's all kind of like lols, so it's harder to hide it, I would say. But if you guys can master that, like you are.
Another question? There was a half a hand up the last time, but I don't know whose it was.
There was
I
think it was
threatening.
Sheldon.
Go on, go on.
Yeah, I know you two both had undergraduates what were not journalism based. Is that the same with you and you saw, like, how did you get into, like, why journalism, like, classics degrees?
Me?
What was your undergrad?
I did English language, and I always loved writing. The line that my tutor gave to me after I'd handed my dissertation in, scathing review of my dissertation was, you can do a lot with very little research. You should be a journalist. So that's what I did.
I did classics because it was because I knew that if I didn't do something that I thought was cool or interesting, then I would never go to class. So that's why I did classics. I finished and then I went out into the wilderness and did a couple of other different things. And basically, coming home at 6 in the morning after working in a nightclub gets kind of old very, very, very quickly. And I actually had the forms filled out to become a teacher. And my mum actually stopped me and said, "Is it, before you send these forms off, is this what you want to do? Like, whenever you were younger, you said that you wanted to be a journalist. Where did that go?" And it kind of made me, it kind of went away and took a day or two and thought, actually, you know what, yeah, that is what I want to do. And that's kind of how I got there. Just on the classics thing, again for your CV, if there's something that can make you stand out, then, you know, go for it, play it up, you know, sell that part of yourself to make your CV stand out.
Yeah, I just did history because, well, I enjoyed it. It's kind of the same as the music thing. It was something that I was comfortable with and I knew. It was, I'd say, kind of around about GCSE times that I kind of decided I wanted to be a journalist because I did a week's work experience with a political party back home, and I just thought all the politicians were really kind of smarmy and lying and stuff, and the journalists were actually pretty cool, and so that kind of turned me on to it. But there were, at the time, maybe that's changed now, there were no courses back in Northern Ireland that I could do, and I wasn't really that fussed about moving away at that point, to be honest. So, you know, I knew that I could write, I knew that I wanted to write, I was fed up reading poetry, so English was out. And
language, dude.
Well,
Science
whatever.
of language.
Whatever, semantics in it. So I did history, and of all the people, you know, that I've spoken to about how they got into journalism or anything like that, they've always said just, you know, a good kind of solid degree, an undergrad degree in journalism is great. But if you've got something like history or English or classics or something, it's just a wee bit different, and then you fine tune it at another point. But I don't think there's any set way. I think we're case in point. There's no like kind of one golden ticket to how to get into it. Do whatever makes you happy. Do whatever you can do. You know, play to your strengths, which is what I've done and kind of spoken my way up.
And come to Leeds Trinity and do their postgrad.
Yeah, do that.
Thanks, Kate. On that, I'm going to wrap up because we have actually run over. But thanks, guys. I know you're really busy. Thank you so much for taking time out and coming back here.